Get to Taco Casa Hotline. It's been a couple of weeks. We've been missing you. I know Dad's been missing firing his controversial questions at you, and you guys thinking just the same. JC Shurburtt with BigSpurcom. He's with 247 Sports. Good morning, JC. How are you, buddy?
Morning. Good morning. It's good to talk to another human being, considering, kind of been cooped up in the house the last couple of weeks. So good to talk to you guys.
Yeah. JC, how does this situation, I would think people are home, they're on their computers, they're dying for any information. Have you seen anything with BigSpurcom or with 247 Sports with the memberships maybe even going up during this time? People looking for anything in sports right now, recruiting, anything. Is this, or is everything just kind of neutral? Has it gone down? What have you seen?
Well, I can just speak for the Big Spur. I've noticed when we've had news in terms of like commitments, there's been a couple of commitments that for football, or Dawn Staley being named the AP Coach of the Year and all that those types of articles have gotten substantially more page views than maybe, if it were just a normal time and there were games and stuff like that. Now, that being said, I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, without any games right now, because we're basically now, from a content standpoint, they're in that period between, June, July, but without any summer football camps and no baseball, and just kind of looking forward to maybe football season. So, that eliminated spring practice. That eliminated basketball recruiting period for the spring. That eliminated the evaluation period for football. And those were very, very good in terms of generating interest and traffic for us last calendar year. So it's been down a little bit. But, part of the beauty of the business that I'm in is that we put such an emphasis on our message board and our community. And the message board's got a bad rap back 10 years ago, because they were basically like Twitter before there was a Twitter, Rumor Central. And now they've almost evolved into a virtual sports bar. So we have a thread on our board every day about this, the virus and all that, and people get to kind of talk it out and share their experiences and stuff like that. So from that standpoint, just a contribution to humanity standpoint, I feel pretty good about where we're at. But, make no mistake about it, business-wise, it would be a lot better if we had things going on. And, here in a couple of months, it's really going to get dry. I mean, I'm kind of brainstorming right now as to maybe some big projects I can take on and stuff in terms of writing just topical things that will keep people's interest.
How are these coaches handling the recruiting right now? What are they doing? Is it FaceTime, Zoom with their staff? I mean, how are they handling it from what you hear?
Yeah, it's just, the good news is now you got a lot of technology with FaceTiming and things like that. But, the coaches that I've talked to are all in a holding pattern. One of my good coaching friends, he's gone fishing every single day, just because he can handle his recruiting and stuff like that. And then, what else is there to do? I mean, because if you're trying to plan for a football season, you don't know when it's going to start. You don't know when you're going to be back on the road again recruiting, and you don't know if you're going to have spring practice dates made up or anything like that. You're just kind of in a holding pattern, except for those few guys. And even in recruiting, guys, this time of year is a big time for players to make unofficial visits to campus. I mean, you usually have guys in just about every weekend in March and on into April. And, then you get on the road, and it's usually a busy time from a recruiting standpoint. And it's just, other than phone calls and texts, it's just at a standstill. So it's, in talking to people, that there still is this uncertainty. I mean, we may not have a non-conference college football season. We may not. They may have to redo the whole thing. I think I'm not inclined to believe that right now and think that's where we're headed, but it's possible. And so everybody's just kind of at a standstill.
Yep.
Well, the one thing that's going to happen is we're going to see less coaches lose their jobs. We're going to have a situation, for example, in the West, and I talk about this, everybody comes home. The main skilled player, the quarterback at LSU, they are the national champions. They don't have one. Auburn knows exactly who they're going to go to. They're going to go to Bo, and Bo's going to be the quarterback. He's going to play. Alabama's trying to decide among 4 good ones, which most people don't have that luxury. So there's 3 different scenarios there, 3 different teams that are going to be doing something a little bit different because of the skill position. But I don't think you're going to find coaches on the hot seat quite as much in football this coming year as you have in past years.
Well, yeah, and especially if they play a reduced schedule. I mean, you end up playing a 7 or 8 game schedule. I mean, I don't even know how the 4-win teams get the bowl games. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see kind of how all that plays out. But I think, too, if you look at college basketball this year, there's been very little turnover in terms of coaches getting fired, moves. I mean, because their season just basically ended abruptly. I mean, that was it. That's over. So I think with an overt sense of fairness, people are probably just going to do it over. In basketball and baseball especially. So. Yeah. And if football gets affected by this, I think that. And look, I'm not a big fan of excuses. Let's say that, and I'll use Will Muschamp as an example, just because I'm a South Carolina guy. Let's say they play 10 games next year. He goes 4-6, and he talks about having a young team and a new OC and no spring practice. Those are valid reasons, but you're in year 5. So, I mean, I look at the XFL. I have some friends that coach in the XFL, and even at that level with, semi-pro guys, they suffered offensively for only having 2 weeks of training camp. And so what if college training camp shortened and stuff like that? So you're going to have some valid reasons, but at the same time, I do think that when you look at specific football situations, there could still be some firings if things don't go well. It's just the same old. But I tend to agree with you that it's going to be a lot less. They're going to be a lot more lenient, I would guess, given this situation, provided the season is impacted.
We're talking with J.C. Shurburtt. J.C., I think this is a sensitive issue with the NCAA as far as the SAT and ACT. You can't offer it right now. So I'm a guy I need 1 point. And who knows when the next one's going to be offered. Do they need to go in and look at that maybe and let the people that are close, because they're being denied the opportunity to take the test, let them in school? How do they handle that in this situation?
I don't know what you do there.
It's tough, isn't it?
Because you're having to waive some NCAA requirements, but also you have these admissions departments at different schools. At some schools they work hand in hand with athletics, and it's not a problem. At other schools, they're not so much. And so you're not only going to have to overcome things on the national level, but on the local level. And I think, though, in the spirit of this, I mean, this is a national health emergency. This is unprecedented. This hasn't happened in our lives. This has never happened. I mean, there's not a person on this earth. Well, maybe somebody that was alive in 1918, but not a whole lot of people on this earth that have lived through this. And so I do think that, the NCAA is very, I think they're tone deaf at times in terms of the PR game, but they also, when it comes to things like this, usually kind of line up. I think they will end up doing some stuff like that, maybe issuing some provisionals, where, hey, you get in, but you have to make X grades, and make sure you're good to go. Otherwise, we can, you could be ineligible or whatever. Maybe some, delayed proof of eligibility or something like that could happen. But I think that's yet another aspect of this thing that, we don't really have a grasp on. I mean, that's the NCAA right now. They've got a ton to kind of work out, I think, with all this.
Yeah, but it's hard for them to plan as well when they don't know any. Like you said, with the college football coach going fishing. Well, I don't know when we're going to have spring practice, and they don't know when this engine's going to crank back up. So it's hard for those guys to even make solid decisions as well. Do you think these football coaching salaries were at an all-time high? I think those will go way down, don't you? Even when we get out of this thing, because a lot of people are just going to say, you know what, I'm not buying tickets anymore. I'm not risking it. Who knows if this will happen again? You think these salaries will go way down in college football?
Well, I think that here's the thing that's driving the salary is the TV money. It's like we're all, you kind of look at college football these days, and coaches essentially are like leading actors with hit TV shows. I mean, that's basically what it gets down to. Because schools are making money and generating revenue in terms of ticket sales and luxury suites and all that, but attendance has been down, and a lot of that drives that's TV. I mean, you're not going to go, or you're going to think twice about going. Let's say you live in Birmingham. You got a nice crib. Okay, you got a pool out back. You got a grill. You got a 70-inch plasma TV that you set up in your man cave that you watch the Crimson Tide on. Now, you're playing LSU at 2:30 in October or November. You're going. You're there. You're in your parking spot. You're tailgating. You got your shaker. You're rocking and rolling. You're playing Western Carolina at 11 in September. You may just rather have a pool party and sit at home and, watch Auburn and whoever they're playing, or Georgia and whoever they're playing, et cetera, et cetera. And that's been the problem with attendance. I do think this. If this thing stretches out, I think that all bets are off with the salaries, with the TV money, with everything, because there is going to be some aversion in terms of, well, what if this happens again? I mean, you're talking about, the NCAA basketball tournament, that cost CBS $1 billion, $1 billion with a B. It was already paid for. I mean, what happens to that money, that the NCAA got? Is there some sort of insurance policy that covers acts of God or disasters or something? I would assume so. They have that for concert things. But I just I think it gets real complicated if you start talking about this thing dragging out through football season. Some people said 18 months at one point. I don't even want to think about it if that happens. But, it is something to where I think, the sooner this thing clears out, everybody gets back to normal, the more normal everything will be. I think it would take a prolonged delay or half a season at least getting canceled before people will start re-examining the TV money and all that, because college football is still very popular.
Yeah.
Well, you're involved with a lot of people, talking to a lot of people. Give our listeners your opinion as to April the 15th work for the SEC. I guess it's a guess for you, but you know more about it than we do because you're involved with so many more people than we are. What's your best guess?
I haven't talked to a single person that's planning on getting everything rolling again on April 15th.
Okay.
Everybody, they're all in a holding pattern because they just don't know. I mean, it's possible, but and I know the president mentioned Easter yesterday, but that was met with some skepticism. But there's people out there that if he said the sky was blue, it's going to be met with skepticism. You can get a 800-page or 800-word article about why it's not blue all the time. So I don't know what to make about that. But that it's almost and too, when you're talking about the health of student athletes, you're talking about how this virus sort of works. All it takes is one guy to have it, and then your entire football team is infected. And that's 85 to 100. That's 120 guys when you're practicing. And so, because it's highly contagious. And so, I think they're going to still exercise an abundance of caution. I think we're looking, based on just reading the tea leaves and the people I've talked to, I think we're looking at least June as a potential start date for, maybe they waive some of the practice for, maybe they let them practice for a couple of weeks this summer in pads or whatever. I mean, most schools have a climate-controlled indoor facility, so I wouldn't worry so much about the heat. especially down south. But, you know, and you also have to keep in mind, too, most of the schools we're talking about here are state-supported, you know, government entities. And, you know, you look around the country, I mean, I would think that is it Governor Ivey down in Alabama?
Yeah.
Is she still the governor? I would think that Kay Ivey would be, and Henry McMaster in South Carolina, and the guy Kemp in Georgia. I think they would be more likely to tell their universities, hey, you know, it's okay to go back. But, you know, J.B. Pritzker in Illinois, so you're going to let the Illini go practice? I mean, he's kind of, you know, almost declared martial law. And Chicago, actually, if you compare it to the other major cities around the country, has very little of this. So it gets political at some point, too. And, you know, because in college football, you know, 80% of the schools we're dealing with are government entities, state-supported, you know, I would think that would be a factor to consider as well.
Yeah, you better hope Liberty, this President Liberty, that works out well. If those kids all come back, and if those kids all come back, and all of a sudden it starts spreading, they may not. That may cost college football right there. What Liberty did, JC.
Yeah, I am not confident in that decision Gary Falwell Jr. made. I just, I would, you know, if I were him, I would exercise an abundance of caution. But, you know, I get it. I understand it. I understand we have to be vigilant and we can't just shut the world down. But at the same time, you know, you're talking about a university where, you know, it's colleges and stuff. I mean, you know, you'd have a cold run through the campus. You know, and you know that Barry, coaching basketball these years, you know, there's times where one of your players gets the flu and it kind of runs through the whole team.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just kind of, and all over the schools. So schools especially need to be very careful. I think I was totally dumbfounded by Jerry Falwell Jr.'s decision. But you know, if you want my personal opinion, as Bobby Knight told, who was it, Jeremy Schaap, you got a long way to go to catch up to your old man. That's kind of my opinion of Jerry Falwell Jr.
Well, JC, tell everybody, are you guys still doing your podcast? What
Mike Morgan and I had a podcast last week where we kind of broke all this down. You know, Mike was at the SEC tournament when all this went down, you know, preparing to call a game before no fans to having the whole thing canceled. Got a great story behind the scenes. I was actually in Nashville at that time, too, kind of watching the fans walk around as the tournament was getting canceled. Kentucky and Auburn fans were up there, Tennessee fans, getting ready for the basketball tournament. It was kind of surreal. So that's on iTunes and Google Play and iHeartRadio. It's the JC and Morgan College Football Podcast. That'd be a good listen right now as you folks are kind of starving for football content.
Great stuff, JC. Talk to you next week.
Hey, thanks, fellas. Take care. Be safe.